Eugene O'Neill's masterpiece, Long Day's Journey into Night, isn't just a play. It's like a four-act biopsy of a family's soul. But if you're looking for a journey towards hope or some big, happy resolution, this isn't it. We're about to dive into a story where the real tragedy isn't what the characters don't know about themselves, but the moments of painful, crystal-clear insight that, in the end, change absolutely nothing.
So, to really get the Tyrone family, you have to understand that O'Neill wasn't just making this stuff up. This play is deeply, deeply personal. He was basically putting his own family on stage, their addictions, their regrets, all of it. He even called the writing process a psychological exorcism, his way of finally confronting what he called the four haunted Tyrones, with, in his words, deep pity and understanding.
For the Tyrones, home isn't a sanctuary, it's a cage. They are stuck in this vicious cycle what O'Neill perfectly describes as a closed circuit of guilt. Everybody blames everybody else for their own unhappiness, and it just goes around and around. And surrounding their house, literally, is this thick fog, which is just the perfect metaphor for the denial and addiction that keeps them all completely lost.
And this brings us to the key idea we're going to explore today, the static epiphany. Now, usually in a story, when a character has a huge moment of self-realization, it's a turning point, right? It's where they finally decide to change. Well, not here. For the Tyrones, these moments of profound self-awareness are static. They see themselves and their failures with horrifying clarity, but that knowledge doesn't free them. If anything, it just locks them into their tragedy even tighter. Let's break down how this works for each of them.
First up, the patriarch, James Tyrone. He's this big, successful actor, the guy who's supposed to be the family's rock. But as we're about to see, his own past has completely poisoned the family's present, building their entire lives on a foundation of fear and resentment.
James is a man who is absolutely haunted by his past. He has what you could call a famine mentality, a deep, obsessive fear of ending up in the poorhouse that goes all the way back to his childhood. But it's not just about being careful with money, it's a sickness. His pathological cheapness, his refusal to pay for a decent doctor, well, that's what directly led to his wife Mary's morphine addiction. And professionally, he totally sold out, trading his incredible talent for the security of one easy, money-making role he performed over and over again.
And you know, a lot of the tension in this family comes from this fundamental clash. James came from a poor, scrappy, black Irish peasant background. Mary, on the other hand, was raised lace curtain. That's a term for Irish families aspiring to a more refined middle-class life. She dreamed of being a concert pianist or a nun. This huge difference in their backgrounds just fuels a lifetime of resentment. They never truly understood each other. So late in the play, fueled by a ton of whiskey, James finally has his epiphany. He confesses the devastating truth he's kept buried his whole life. He threw away his chance to be a truly great Shakespearean actor. He got rich, sure, but he lost his soul in the process. And for what? He looks back and asks, what the hell was it I wanted to buy? It's just a moment of raw, heartbreaking honesty. But, and this is the key, it's a static epiphany. The regret is 100% real. The confession is genuine. But that fear that drives him, that childhood terror of poverty, it's just too deep. It's baked into his DNA. So even though he sees the truth of his wasted life, he's completely powerless to change. The insight is there, but there's no escape hatch.
Okay, let's move on to the elder son, Jamie. He's the cynic, the drunk, the family screw-up. But all that sneering and sarcasm, it's just a mask for a deep, corrosive guilt that poisons every single person he gets close to.
Jamie is just trapped in this downward spiral. He drowns his failures and his guilt in booze and women. He feels responsible for everything. For accidentally causing the death of his baby brother years ago, for his mother's addiction, for his own wasted life, and all that guilt just curdles into this toxic jealousy of his younger brother Edmund, the one who actually has real talent.
And Jamie's confession to Edmund, wow, it is one of the most brutal and devastating moments in all of American theater. He admits, flat out, that part of him loves his brother, but another, stronger part of him is so full of self-hatred that he has to try and corrupt him, to drag him down to his level. I've got to kill the thing I love, he says. It's just a gut punch.
So why is this a static epiphany? Because knowing how awful he is doesn't lead him to try and get better. It just makes him hate himself more. He sees the monster he is, but instead of fighting it, he just accepts it. His big moment of truth isn't a cry for help, it's a warning to his brother, get away from me before I destroy you too. It's an act of love, maybe, but it's also the ultimate act of surrender.
And that brings us to Mary.
The mother, she's the emotional center of this whole tragedy, this ghost who haunts the house, floating through the present while desperately trying to retreat into a past that's been twisted and idealized by morphine.
Mary is living in a total fog, both literally and figuratively. Her morphine addiction, which, remember, started because her husband hired a cheap quack doctor after a traumatic childbirth, is her only escape from a life she sees as a total disappointment. She resents her husband for a life lived on the road and cheap hotels instead of the real home she always wanted. So she just retreats into her memories, back to the ghost of the promising young girl she used to be.
But even inside that morphine haze, there are these terrifying flashes of clarity. Mary has these moments where she sees her addiction for exactly what it is. She knows she's lost herself. As she says in this heartbreaking line, she knows her soul is no longer her own. She's completely aware of her own tragedy.
For Mary, these epiphanies are maybe the most tragic of all, because they are so short-lived. They're just these painful little breaks in the fog. She surfaces, sees the wreckage of her life, feels the shame, and then the drug just pulls her right back under. Any glimmer of hope, any chance for change, is immediately extinguished when the fog rolls back in.
So when you piece all of these individual tragedies together, you finally see the full, devastating picture. This isn't just about a few flawed people. It's about a family system that is so fundamentally broken that even seeing the truth becomes just another dead end.
I mean, this line from Mary just says it all, doesn't it? For the Tyrones, time isn't a straight line. The past isn't something you learn from and move on. No, the past is a living, breathing thing in their house that infects every moment of the present and completely determines the future. They are trapped.
And the play's final image is just unforgettable. Mary has completely drifted away into her morphine dream, and the three men, James and his two sons, are left sitting in a drunken haze. James, the father, passes the whiskey bottle to Jamie, who then passes it to Edmund. It's like watching dominoes fall. It's this silent, horrifying picture of generational trauma being passed down, a curse moving from one generation to the next.
And this really leaves us with a tough, unsettling question. The Tyrones know what's wrong. They see their own flaws with brutal honesty. But it isn't enough to save them. So it makes you wonder, when you're dealing with such deep family trauma, can self-awareness alone ever be enough to truly break the cycle?
Because ultimately, that's the tragedy of this play. For this haunted family, those moments of truth, those epiphanies, they aren't doors to a better life. They're not exits. They're just deeper, darker shadows in a home that has no escape.